Welcome to the chosen bloom. The most dangerous person is not the one who fights in anger, but the one who walks away without regret. For when nothing is left to lose, everything becomes possible to gain. They never saw it coming, did they? They laughed while you stumbled, doubted while you tried, and now they choke on their own arrogance, watching as you step into freedom while their world unravels. This is no quiet departure. It is a reckoning. They thought you were trapped, bound inside their twisted little game. To them, you were convenience, a safety net, an endless well of energy to drain. But what they never understood is the power you carried all along. Because the chosen ones do not simply leave, we vanish. We erase our presence so completely that the void itself becomes their teacher. And in that silence, they must face the bitter truth. Without you, they are nothing. They will call it dramatic. They will pretend to be shocked. They will whisper that you changed, that you turned cold. But you didn't change, you awakened. You realized that staying was not loyalty, it was slow death. True survival demanded that you choose yourself over those who only loved you when they could use you. And here lies the ugly truth. Most people don't miss you. They miss the things you did for them. What they mourn is not love, but the collapse of their control. The comfort they once extracted from your sacrifice is gone, leaving them to confront the emptiness they buried beneath your presence. Yet the sharpest cut of all is not your anger, nor your pleas, nor your shouts. It is your silence. You walked out without a fight, without a backward glance. And that, above all, is what haunts them most. For silence is the loudest goodbye, and indifference the most merciless revenge. This isn't just about leaving. It's about reclaiming what was always yours, your power. The same power they denied, the same power they drained, the same power they feared. What they never understood is that the strength of a chosen one does not vanish, it transforms. While they are left wandering the ruins of their own delusion, you rise, renewed. And to you, the one who refused the cage, the one who finally walked away, this is your moment. Whether you've carried this truth for years or only just arrived here, know this, you are not alone. This space belongs to all who broke free. Together we stand, unashamed, never looking back, walking in the power they never wanted us to realize. So if this word resonates, declare it, smash the like, subscribe, and mark the moment in the comments with 77, the number of completion, the seal of choosing yourself over them. Now, let us break it down, step by step. Trust this, if you are truly one of the chosen, you will feel it, the pull, the truth, the fire. Stay with me until the end, and by the time we're finished, you will never again doubt your decision. Number 1, you were present, but never seen. They didn't lose you, they lost the privilege of your presence. And now all that remains is the echo of what they never valued. They sit in shock, asking how you could leave, blind to the truth that you had already departed long before your feet carried you out the door. Long before the goodbye, you were a shadow in the room, a body going through the motions, a voice speaking only when required. They never noticed the fire in your eyes fading, the exhaustion behind your practiced smile. They mistook your silence for submission, your patience for surrender. But within, you knew you were finished. They assumed you would always remain, because you always had. You were constant. You were the weight bearer. You were the one who stayed when no one else would. And they loved that version of you, the one who gave without limit, sacrificed without question, silenced your own needs for their convenience. That was the lie they lived in. And that is the lie you broke free from. You were predictable. You were comfortable. Easy to overlook, yet impossible to live without. That was their mistake. When something is always present, people stop questioning its existence. They forget to ask if it is still breathing, still whole, still willing to remain. They never asked if you were happy. They never asked if you felt seen. All they cared about was that you stayed because your presence spared them from facing the truth of how little they gave in return. But here's what torments them now. Your leaving was not sudden. It was inevitable. Every time you bit your tongue, every night you whispered to yourself, "I deserve better." Every sigh, every second guess, every forced smile, these were your silent goodbyes. And they never noticed. Now they sit in disbelief, staring at the empty space you once filled, confronted by what they always refused to see. You were not staying out of love, but out of habit, not out of belonging, but out of obligation. And when someone realizes they were never a choice, only a duty, it breaks them. They tell themselves you changed, that you turned cold. But the truth is simpler: you woke up. You understood that being physically present while emotionally absent is a slow death. You recognize that remaining in a place where you were never valued is not loyalty, but self-betrayal. And you chose, at last, to stop betraying yourself. The cruelest part for them is this: they thought time was endless. They thought there would always be another day, another chance to drain you, another cycle of neglect and expectation to keep you bound. They never saw the cracks forming, never noticed the moment your heart stopped caring. And by the time they finally looked up, you were already gone. Now they are left with an emptiness they cannot fill. Yes, they may find someone new, someone to pour into, someone to give without limit, but it will never be you. And that truth will echo louder than your presence ever did. Because you were rare. You were the light in their gray existence, the steady presence they leaned on but never truly saw. And now that you are gone, their world feels smaller, their air thinner, because the one they dismissed was the one holding everything together. Let them grieve. Let them drown in their regret. Because this time, you are not coming back. Number 2, they drained your light, then cried in the darkness. They believed your light was endless, like the sun itself. But even the sun burns out when it gives too much without rest. They took and they took again, basking in the glow of your strength, your warmth, your unwavering energy, as if it were theirs to claim without limit. You were the fire that kept them alive, the flame that lit their path. And they never stopped to wonder what would happen when there was nothing left in you to give. They convinced themselves you would shine forever, that no matter how much they demanded, no matter how little they returned, you would always remain bright, strong, unshaken. Because that's who you were to them, the problem solver, the one who showed up, the one who held it all together even when you were running on empty. But light is not free. It requires fuel. It requires care. It requires reverence. And when those are absent, even the strongest flame begins to flicker. They never noticed when your glow dimmed. They were too busy standing in it, too busy enjoying the warmth you gave. They never asked if you were tired. They never asked if you were okay. And when the fire inside you began to fade, they did not care, because in their minds, you were theirs to consume forever. It was always your job to shine, or so they believed. But here's what they never understood: even the brightest light will fade when it is never fed. And now, they sit in the cold, wondering where you went. They miss the way you brought clarity to their chaos, the way you softened the blows life hurled at them, the way you made everything easier. But let's be honest, they don't miss you. They miss the comfort you provided. They miss the safety net you represented. They miss the convenience of having someone to fix what they refused to face. Now they stumble in the dark, searching for a replacement. But there is none. Because your light was never theirs to own, it was a gift you chose to share. And when they failed to honor it, when they failed to protect it, you reclaimed it. Only now do they see your worth. But it is too late. You are gone, and this time they must learn to navigate the darkness without you. Number 3, you shattered the cage they built for you. They were never afraid of losing you. They were afraid you would realize you never needed them at all. Their cage was subtle, disguised in pretty words: love, loyalty, duty. They dressed control as safety, painted limitation as protection. But the truth was never about keeping you safe. It was about keeping you small. They needed you predictable, manageable, easy to contain, a piece that fit neatly into their puzzle without disrupting the picture they had built for themselves. You were never meant to think beyond the walls they set around you. You were never meant to question the limits they drew. But you did. At first, it was only a feeling, a tightness in your chest, a whisper at the back of your mind saying, "This isn't right." And for a while, you silenced it. You told yourself, "This is just how things are. If I shrink a little more, bend a little further, maybe I can make it work." Then one day, something shifted. Maybe it was one piercing moment of clarity. Maybe it was 1,000 small cuts, disrespect, dismissal, invisibility stacked so high that you could no longer deny the truth. But then it happened. The cage was no longer invisible. You saw it for what it was, a prison disguised as a home. And once your eyes were opened, you could not close them again. You began to push, to test the walls, to take up space you were never meant to claim. You began becoming who you were always meant to be. And that is when the panic set in. They saw you changing, growing, refusing to shrink. And they hated it not because they loved you, but because they loved controlling you. Now they cry out in shock, calling you selfish, ungrateful, even cruel. But let's make this clear. You didn't leave them. You left the version of yourself that fit inside their cage. You left the silence, the smallness, the endless begging for approval. And here is the bitter truth. They cannot follow you, because to rise, they would have to grow. To grow, they would have to break their own chains. And they were never willing to. So now all they can do is watch you ascend, knowing at last that they never held the power because you were only ever waiting to reclaim it. Number 4, their power over you was always an illusion. And you broke it. Control is not power. Real power is walking away, then watching them fall apart without you. For so long, they played their game well. They wrapped their control in soft words, concern, loyalty, love. But do not be fooled. It was never love. It was power, carefully disguised as care. Every choice you made was shaped by their influence. Every boundary you set was blurred just enough to keep you inside their walls. And every time doubt crept in, they fed you just enough validation to keep you tethered. They believed they had you locked in, convinced you would always seek their approval, that their opinions could bend your path. They thought you needed them. That belief, that fragile illusion, was their safety net. And the moment you walked away, you tore it apart. They were unprepared. They thought guilt would bind you, obligation would chain you, fear would paralyze you. They miscalculated. They underestimated. Because once you saw the truth that their power existed only as long as you allowed it, everything was finished. You didn't leave in anger. You didn't leave for revenge. You left because you outgrew the lies. You saw through the manipulation, the guilt trips, the mind games. You stopped bending. You stopped shrinking. You stopped second-guessing yourself just to fit inside their world. You reclaimed yourself. And in their eyes, that was the most dangerous thing you could have done, because now they must face the one truth they never wanted to admit. Without you, they are powerless. They are scrambling now, lost in a reality where you no longer obey their rules. They are trying to process what happened, but deep down they know the grip they once held was never real. It worked only because you allowed it. And now that you're gone, their entire empire of control has collapsed into dust. They sit in disbelief, asking, how did this happen? But the answer is simple. They built their power on the illusion that you would never leave. And you just shattered that illusion. Number 5, the black hole they cannot escape. Some losses pass quickly. Others carve scars so deep that nothing grows there again. Your absence is not just noticed, it is felt. When you left, it wasn't just a goodbye. It was a rupture, a tear in the very fabric of their world. The kind of absence that does not fade with time. It lingers. It echoes. It haunts. They thought they could move on, replace you, fill the gap with someone new. But some spaces cannot be filled, because you were not just another presence in their life, you were the glue that kept everything from collapsing, the steady force that brought order to chaos, the light that broke their endless monotony. You were the quiet foundation, the overlooked constant. And now that you are gone, that foundation is gone with you. Only now do they realize the weight of what they lost too late. You were like air unnoticed until it was gone. Like gravity never questioned until the fall. They assumed you would always be there. That no matter how much they ignored you, used you, overlooked you, you would still show up, still pour yourself out, still hold everything together. It isn't just you they miss. It's the life that worked only because you were in it. It's the ease you brought to chaos, the weight you silently carried, the stability you offered without thanks. Your presence wasn't just an addition to their world, it was the unseen foundation holding it together. And now, with that foundation gone, they are left with the cold realization they had something extraordinary, and they ruined it. They thought they'd be fine without you, that life would move forward seamlessly, that someone else could fill your role. But what they are realizing, slowly and painfully, is that your absence isn't just a gap, it's a wound. A wound that will not heal, a wound they cannot ignore. A wound that will haunt them day after day, reminding them of the treasure they lost when they let you go. Number 6, they fed off your strength, and now they are starving. They never truly loved you. They loved the way you held their world together while your own was breaking. They loved the way your resilience seemed endless, as if you were some unshakable force placed in their lives to absorb what they could not handle. Every storm they refused to face, they handed to you. When their lives unraveled, they ran to your steadiness. When their emotions crashed, they leaned on your calm. When chaos consumed them, you were the one to fix it. You became their foundation, their shelter, their quiet savior. But here's what they never asked. Who was holding you up? You made it look effortless, didn't you? You carried their burdens with a steady face, swallowed your own struggles in silence, and kept everything running smoothly no matter the cost to yourself. And because you never broke, they assumed you never would. That was their mistake. They mistook your endurance for duty. They mistook your patience for permission. They thought your strength was theirs to consume rather than yours to protect. But resilience is not infinite. It is not a well that never runs dry. You gave, and you gave, and you gave until there was nothing left. And when you finally walked away, when you chose yourself over them, they didn't just lose a person. They lost their safety net. Now the cracks are showing. The weight of their dysfunction is no longer hidden beneath your quiet sacrifices. The same people who dismissed your pain are now gasping for air, drowning in the very chaos you once contained. And they don't know what to do because without you, the mess is undeniable. They thought they could depend on you forever, that you would always be there no matter how little they gave in return. They never imagined a world where they'd have to stand on their own. But now, they have no choice. They are being forced to face the wreckage you shielded them from for far too long. So let them panic. Let them struggle. Because for the first time, they are seeing life without the one who held it all together. And this time you are not coming back to save them. Number 7, they can copy you, but they cannot replace you. A copy will always fade, while the original remains untouchable. They thought you were interchangeable, that someone else could step into the space you left, play your role, follow your script. But they were wrong. Dead wrong. Because when you left, You didn't just take your body, you carried away the one thing they could never recreate, your authenticity. They can try to mimic your words, repeat your actions, even cling to someone who faintly resembles you. But authenticity is not something you can fake, rent, or steal. It is either alive in you or it is not. And that is where they are drowning. You see, they built their lives on illusion, on pretending, on pleasing, on bending themselves into shapes that would make them feel accepted. But you were different. You spoke what you meant, and you meant what you spoke. You saw what others overlooked. You refused to be anything but yourself. That frightened them. That challenged them. And instead of rising to meet your standard, they tried to take from you what they could never carry themselves. Now that you are gone, the cracks in their world are exposed. The laughter feels forced. The conversations ring hollow.
The gestures are empty.
No matter how hard they try, they cannot recreate what made you rare, because what you brought was not just energy. It was depth, and depth cannot be copied. So they scramble, filling their time with noise, with substitutes, with distractions that numb the ache of truth. But late at night, when the noise dies down, the realization creeps in. You were one of one. The connection you gave, the presence you carried, the fire woven into your words, none of it was replaceable. And the worst part, they know it. They can act unbothered. They can surround themselves with noise, but deep down, they feel it. They feel the void where your authenticity once stood. The raw, unfiltered realness you carried made everything around you matter. And no matter how much they pretend, that truth will haunt them. Because at the end of the day, they didn't just lose a person, they lost the only real thing they ever had. Number 8, your absence is their mirror, and they cannot look away. The cruelest pain is not abandonment. It is the realization that you were the reason someone left. Your departure was not simply a loss, it was a brutal awakening. They thought they could manage without you, but the moment you walked away, everything shifted. Not just because you were gone, but because your absence reflected back the truth they had long refused to see. They always assumed you would stay, that you would clean their messes, smooth their mistakes, hold up their fragile world while they took you for granted. But the second you left, the cracks they ignored became undeniable. The ones you had held together with your strength now stared them in the face. They had leaned on your resilience so they wouldn't have to build their own. They hid behind your wisdom to mask their reckless choices. They excused their selfishness through your kindness. As long as you were there, they could deflect, distract, and pretend. But now, the silence screams. The emptiness exposes. Without you, the truth can no longer be denied. And so the questions begin to gnaw at them. Why didn't I value them when I had the chance? Why did I push so far that they had no choice but to leave? But the most poisonous question of all is this: what does it say about me that someone so loyal, so giving, so rare decided I wasn't worth staying for? That thought corrodes. Because it's one thing to feel abandoned. It's another to realize you earned it. You were their shield, the buffer between them and their own flaws. And now, with no one left to cover their failures, they are forced to face themselves. Their reflection is unforgiving. The toxic cycles they thought could run forever now lie exposed. The manipulation they once used to control you is useless. The illusion of power they held over you gone. And the worst part, it's too late to repair. They lost the best thing they ever had. And every single day, they are haunted by one unshakable truth: they were the reason you left. Number 9, they gambled on your guilt and lost everything. The moment you stopped feeling guilty for choosing yourself was the moment they lost their final weapon against you. They thought they had you trapped not by chains, not by force, not even by words, but by guilt. Their control was built on the idea that you would always feel obligated. Obligated to stay, obligated to give, obligated to sacrifice, even at the expense of your own soul. They counted on the belief that no matter how much they drained you, you'd never have the heart to leave. And for a time, they were right. They played their roles with precision. The weight they placed on your shoulders was never loud, never obvious. It was quiet, calculated, a contract you never signed but were always expected to fulfill. They made you believe that walking away was selfish, that choosing yourself was betrayal. Every time you thought of leaving, they fed you poison. After all I've done for you, you wouldn't leave me like that. I thought you cared. And for a while, it worked. You second-guessed yourself. You stayed when you should have walked away. You gave when you had nothing left. You allowed their expectations to dictate your life because they convinced you that love, friendship, loyalty meant putting yourself last. But then something shifted. It began with a quiet moment of clarity, a realization so sharp it cut through all the noise. You saw the truth. The only person you had been betraying was yourself. The guilt they used against you was nothing more than a leash, a tool to keep you small, to keep you available, to keep you under control. And the moment you understood that, everything shifted. You left. No hesitation, no apologies, no backward glance. And that broke them not just because you were gone, but because the leash snapped. The grip they thought they had dissolved into nothing. They were unprepared for you to walk away without guilt gnawing at you, unprepared for the day you would realize that loyalty without reciprocity is not love at all. It is self-destruction. Now they sit, replaying it in their minds, trying to understand how you slipped through their fingers. But the truth is plain. They never had you. They only had your guilt. And when that spell broke, so did everything else. Number 10, you were their comfort. Now you are their wake-up call. Some lessons are whispered. Others arrive in the deafening silence of someone who is never coming back. They thought they had time to push you aside, time to take you for granted, time to play their games and assume you would always be there cleaning their mess, absorbing their storms, sacrificing yourself to keep their world from collapsing. But time ran out. Your departure wasn't just a goodbye. It was a siren shattering their delusions. A wrecking ball slamming into the false security they built around your presence. They never imagined a world without you waiting in the background, ready to forgive, ready to sacrifice, ready to save. And now, they are drowning in the consequences of their own arrogance. Every misstep they made, every choice they neglected, every moment they ignored your worth it, all comes crashing down. They are waking up, but it is too late. They took and took, assuming you would always have more to give. They dismissed your pain, brushed aside your needs, and believed you would bend forever, never realizing that one day you would break free. Now your silence is their loudest punishment. They look around and feel the emptiness where you used to be. They reach for you, but you are gone. Every single day, they are haunted by what they lost, the comfort of knowing you would always return gone. The certainty that they could always have one more chance gone. The belief that you needed them more than they needed you, shattered beyond repair. They cannot escape it. They can distract themselves, surround themselves with noise, fill the void with temporary replacements, but nothing feels the same. Because you were not just another person in their life. You were the anchor, the balance, the force that made their world function. And now, they are left to sit in the wreckage of their own making. What cuts the deepest? They did this to themselves. They had something rare, something extraordinary, and they let it slip through their fingers. Now every second without you is a burning reminder of how badly they failed. But you are done being their lesson. Let them wake up alone. Because you are never looking back. Number 11. You were the fire in their gray world. And the rarest pain of all is realizing you lost the only spark that made your life feel alive. They surrounded themselves with the average, the predictable, the safe. A dull existence where everything stayed the same until you walked in. You were not just another person in their orbit. You were the exception, the disruption, the fire that cracked open their mediocrity. You made them feel something real. You were something they were never brave enough to chase on their own. Without even trying, you shook their world. Your energy, your ambition, your authenticity, everything about you stood in sharp contrast to the stagnant routine they had built around themselves. Without a word, you reminded them that life is more than survival, more than just existing. You were living proof that something extraordinary was possible, and that terrified them. Because here's the truth, people like them don't want to rise. They want to remain. They cling to stability, even when it means settling for less. They speak of greatness, but refuse to do the work it demands. And you embodied what was possible. You weren't just a presence in their life. You were a mirror, reflecting back everything they could be if only they had the courage to try. But instead of rising to meet you, they resented you. It is always easier to despise the fire than to admit you are afraid of burning. They kept you close, not out of love, but because standing near your light gave them the illusion of access to something greater. Yet deep down they knew they would never match your hunger, your drive, your relentless need to evolve. So they did what people like them always do. They tried to dim you, to contain you, to make you smaller so they would not have to grow. But now that you are gone, the illusion has collapsed. They thought they could slip back into their routines, their mediocrity, their safe little world. But something is missing, something they cannot replace. The space you once filled has become a gaping hole, a living reminder of everything they ignored, everything they could have been, and everything they will never become. They didn't just lose you. They lost their only chance at more. And now they are left to sit in the emptiness, haunted by the truth. They held the extraordinary in their hands, and they let it slip away. Number 12, they wanted to own you, not free you. They never loved you. They loved controlling you. And when you broke free, their world crumbled. They never valued you, they valued possessing you. To them, you weren't a person. You were a piece in their puzzle, a character in their carefully crafted story. Your presence made their lives easier. Your energy kept their worlds spinning. But your freedom, your right to choose that, was never part of their deal. They never thought you would leave because in their eyes, you weren't supposed to. You were supposed to stay exactly where they placed you, bending, adjusting, shrinking to fit their expectations. They mistook your kindness for obedience. They mistook your patience for permanence. Your very existence became their comfort, their stability, their certainty. And so, they never imagined a life where you were no longer at their command. But here's the truth they never understood. You were never meant to be owned. For too long, they operated under the illusion that you would always prioritize their wants over your own, that your boundaries were optional, that your loyalty meant self-abandonment. They convinced themselves your identity was clay, ready to be shaped by their hands. And they liked it that way. Because as long as you played along, they never had to face the truth that they never truly respected you. But then, the illusion shattered. Because your leaving wasn't just about walking away. It was about rejecting the cage they built for you. You tore up the unspoken contract that demanded you give endlessly, tolerate quietly, and stay small so they could feel big. And when you walked out, you took something with you. The power they thought they held over you gone. Now they face a brutal truth. The version of you they loved never even existed. It was a projection, a construct they built to suit their needs. The real you, the one who refuses to be controlled, the one who walks away without looking back, that was the you they never wanted to face. They don't grieve your absence. They grieve the loss of control, the loss of ownership, the loss of their ability to mold you into something small enough to fit their comfort. and that is what haunts them most. Number 13, you left without begging, and that terrifies them. Some doors don't slam. They close quietly, because the loudest message is the one delivered in silence. They expected a scene. They thought you would cry, plead, demand one final scrap of validation. But instead, you did the one thing they never prepared for you: walked away. No apologies, no explanations. Just a quiet, unshakable decision that left them standing in the ruins of their own illusion. They thought they had time to manipulate, time to guilt, time to convince you to stay just a little longer. What they never understood was that your patience was never weakness. It was a countdown. And when the last second struck, you left without hesitation, without looking back. Your departure was never about revenge. It wasn't about proving a point. It was about something far greater: self-respect. You didn't need permission to leave. You didn't need their understanding. Because when you know your worth, you don't bargain with it. You don't lower yourself for those who never saw your value in the first place. And now, they are haunted by the finality of it all. For the first time, they see it clearly. Their power over you was never real. It was an illusion. And the moment you chose yourself, the entire game collapsed. They called you selfish. They said you were heartless. But what they really meant was, how dare you choose yourself over us? Because the truth is, they were never afraid of losing you. They were afraid of losing control over you. And now that control is gone, all they are left with is the wreckage they created. Your silence is the loudest thing they've ever heard. Because you didn't just leave a space, you left a void. A void filled with every truth they refused to face. They see it now in every empty moment, every unfinished conversation, every reminder that the one they once relied on is never coming back. They thought they were the ones in control. They thought you needed them. But now, they are faced with the harder truth: you were the one holding it all together. And without you, their world unravels, piece by piece. And you? You are free. Free to be everything they never allowed you to become. Free to build a life where you never again have to shrink to fit someone else's small world. Free to rise, unstoppable. And just like that, it's over. Not just your presence in their life, but the illusion they clung to. The comfort of believing you would always be there. They never thought you'd leave, and now they can't believe it's final. But you know the truth. This was never a loss for you. This was your awakening. Number 14, the Phoenix moment you didn't just leave. You died and came back as someone they could never control again. There is a moment in every chosen one's journey that is sacred, terrifying, and absolute. It is not the moment you walk away that is only the beginning. The Phoenix moment is when you realize that the person who stayed, who endured, who sacrificed themselves into nothing, that person is gone forever. And in their place stands someone entirely new. Someone they will never recognize. Someone they can never touch again. They thought your leaving was the end of their story with you, but it was only the death of who you used to be. What they never anticipated was your resurrection. Because when a chosen one falls apart completely, when every illusion is shattered and every false comfort is stripped away, something extraordinary happens. You don't just rebuild, you become. The Phoenix moment is not gentle. It is not gradual. It arrives like lightning splitting the sky, sudden, violent, transformational. One day you are the person who bends, who breaks, who begs for scraps of love from those who see you as disposable. The next, you are someone else entirely. Someone who looks in the mirror and sees a stranger.
Someone who speaks with a voice that commands respect rather than pleading for it.
Someone whose very presence makes others uncomfortable because they can sense the shift, the power that was always there, now fully awakened and impossible to ignore. They will not understand this version of you. The person who left was predictable, controllable, familiar. But the person you have become, you are a mystery to them. Your laugh sounds different, deeper, freer, untainted by the need for their approval. Your silence carries weight they cannot decipher. Your choices flow from a place they never knew existed within you. You move through the world like someone who owns it, not someone asking permission to exist in it. What terrifies them most is not your anger, it is your peace. Because anger, they could handle. Anger meant you still cared enough to fight. But this peace, this unshakable calm that radiates from your core, it tells them something far more devastating. You have found something better. You have discovered a version of yourself that needs nothing from them. Nothing at all. They will try to find traces of the old you, searching desperately for cracks in your new armor, hoping to glimpse the person they once knew how to manipulate. But that person is ash. That person was burned away in the fire of your awakening. What stands before them now is the phoenix, beautiful, powerful, and utterly beyond their reach. The old you lived in reaction to their moods, their demands, their whims. This new you lives in response to your own inner compass. The old you sought validation from their approval. This new you validates yourself. The old you measured your worth by how useful you were to others. This new you knows your worth is intrinsic, unshakable, not subject to anyone else's opinion. And here is what haunts them in the depths of night. They realize they never really knew you at all. The person they thought they controlled was only a shadow, a fragment, a version of you dimmed by their expectations. The real you, the phoenix you, was always there, waiting beneath the surface. Waiting for the moment when the fire would burn away everything false, everything borrowed, everything that was not authentically, powerfully, unapologetically you. They had their chance to know this version of you. They could have loved you into this transformation instead of forcing you to find it in the ashes of their betrayal. But they chose control over connection. They chose possession over partnership. They chose to see you as small so they could feel big. Now they are left to witness from a distance as you soar, not despite their rejection, but because of it. Because sometimes the cruelest gift someone can give you is showing you exactly who they are. And sometimes the greatest mercy is being forced to discover exactly who you are when all their illusions fall away. You didn't just survive them. You transcended them. And that transcendence is permanent, irreversible, absolute. The game isn't just finished, the board has been burned. And from its ashes, you have risen as someone they could never diminish again. Number 15. The immunity once awakened, you become untouchable. Their old tricks bounce off you like raindrops on steel. There is a moment when you realize something extraordinary has happened within you. It is not dramatic. It is not loud. It is quiet, certain, and absolute. You are sitting across from someone using the same manipulation tactics that once brought you to your knees, and you feel nothing. Not anger, not pain, not even the faintest tremor of doubt. You watch them deploy their arsenal of guilt, shame, and emotional blackmail, and it is like watching a magician whose tricks you have already learned. You see the strings. You know the sleight of hand. And most importantly, you are completely immune. This is not something you can fake, pretend, or manufacture. Immunity is earned through fire. It is the scar tissue that forms over wounds that have fully healed, stronger than the original skin, impervious to the weapons that once cut so deep. They can try the same words that once made you crumble, but those words now hit a wall they cannot penetrate. Because the person those tactics worked on no longer exists. They will be confused by this new you, frustrated, then desperate, because their power was always built on your susceptibility to their emotional manipulation, your need for their approval, your fear of their disapproval, your willingness to shrink when they demanded space, to dim when they needed to shine. But that person, the one who could be controlled, diminished, convinced to doubt their own reality, is gone forever. Watch them scramble as they realize their favorite weapons have become useless. They will turn up the intensity, certain that if they just push harder, guilt louder, manipulate more skillfully, they can find that old wound they used to press. But there is no wound left to press. There is only armor, forged in the furnace of your awakening, tempered by the wisdom of hard-won experience. They will try nostalgia, reminding you of the good times that never really existed, painting memories in colors they never actually wore. You will listen with the detached interest of someone watching a movie about strangers, because you remember those moments differently now. You see them for what they really were, not love, but conditioning. Not connection, but transaction. Not partnership, but control disguised as care. They will try guilt. How could you abandon them after everything they've done for you? But you know better now. You understand that everything they did for you was an investment in your compliance, not a gift of genuine love. You see through the emotional debt they try to collect, recognizing it for what it always was, a chain disguised as a gift. They will try anger, accusing you of being cold, heartless, changed. And you will smile because they are right. You have changed. The heart that once bled for their approval now beats steady and strong for your own truth. The warmth that once poured endlessly into their empty vessel now flows into your own life, nourishing dreams they tried to convince you were impossible. They will try fear-threatening consequences, loss, abandonment. But you have already walked through that fire and emerged whole. You have already faced their worst, survived their absence, discovered that the world does not end when you choose yourself. Their threats are empty echoes of terrors you have already conquered. The most beautiful part of this immunity is how effortless it becomes. You don't have to fight their manipulation because it simply slides off you. You don't have to argue with their distorted reality because you are firmly rooted in your own truth. You don't have to defend your decisions because you no longer require their understanding or approval. This immunity is not callousness, it is clarity. It is not hardness, it is wholeness. You can still love, still trust, still open your heart, but now you do so from a place of strength, not desperation. From choice, not compulsion. From wisdom, not wishful thinking. They will call this transformation many things: selfishness, cruelty, betrayal. But you know what it really is: freedom. Freedom from the prison of other people's expectations. Freedom from the exhausting cycle of trying to earn love through sacrifice. Freedom from the illusion that you are responsible for everyone else's emotions while neglecting your own. And here is the truth that will haunt them forever. This immunity is permanent. There is no going back from this awakening. No amount of love bombing can convince you to lower your guard. No amount of guilt can make you doubt your worth. No amount of manipulation can make you forget who you are. You have become unfoolable, unshakable, untouchable. They created this immunity in you through their own actions. Every betrayal was a vaccine against future manipulation. Every lie was a lesson in recognizing deception. Every moment they chose control over love taught you the difference between the two. They thought they could keep you small forever. Instead, forged you into something indestructible. They thought they could make you dependent on their approval. Instead, they taught you the unshakable power of self-validation. The game isn't just finished. The rules have been rewritten. And in this new game, you are not a player to be moved around the board. You are the one who decides whether to play at all. And more often than not, you choose to walk away from games that were rigged against you from the start. This is your immunity, your liberation, your inheritance from the ashes of who you used to be. Number 16, the ripple effect. Your liberation becomes their permission. One chosen, one awakening creates an unstoppable chain reaction. Your freedom is not a solitary event. It is a stone thrown into still water, and the ripples travel far beyond what you can see. When you walked away, when you chose yourself, when you broke the chains they thought were permanent, you did more than save yourself. You became living proof that escape is possible. And that proof is dangerous to every system built on keeping people small. They will try to contain the damage, to minimize your story, to convince others that what you did was unique to your situation, unrepeatable, unrealistic, selfish. But truth has a way of traveling through underground networks, of whispered conversations, knowing glances and hearts that recognize their own story in yours. The people who watched you endure, who witnessed your transformation, who saw you rise from the ashes, they begin to ask themselves the most dangerous question of all. If they could do it, why can't I? This is the moment the dominoes begin to fall. It starts quietly. A friend who watched your journey begins to question why they accept crumbs disguised as love. A family member who saw you choose peace over chaos starts to examine their own tolerance for dysfunction. A colleague who witnessed your refusal to be diminished begins to recognize their own worth. The courage you displayed becomes a mirror, reflecting back to others the strength they forgot they possess. One by one, they begin to stir. The ones who stayed silent while watching you suffer now find their own voice. The ones who normalize their own mistreatment begin to see it for what it truly is. The ones who thought they had no choice suddenly realize they do. Your awakening becomes their permission slip to examine their own lives with the same unflinching honesty. And this terrifies those who built their kingdoms on the compliance of others. Because toxic systems cannot survive widespread awakening. They require unconsciousness, complicity, and the belief that this is just how things are. When one person breaks free and proves that another way is possible, it threatens the entire structure. The manipulators, the controllers, the emotional vampires, they all feel the shift. Their carefully constructed realities begin to crack under the pressure of collective questioning. They will try to discredit you, to paint your liberation as abandonment, your healing as betrayal, your strength as cruelty. They will whisper that you've changed for the worse, that you've become selfish, that you've forgotten where you came from. But their words fall on increasingly deaf ears, because others are beginning to see through the same lies that once kept you trapped. The awakening spreads like wildfire through drought-dry hearts that have been waiting their whole lives for permission to choose themselves. Your courage becomes their courage. Your boundary becomes their blueprint. Your no becomes their vocabulary. Your walk away becomes their roadmap. Watch as entire dynamics shift around you. Families where one person's awakening forces everyone else to examine their own patterns. Workplaces where one person's refusal to be exploited raises questions about why others accept it. Friend groups where one person's departure reveals the toxicity that everyone was pretending not to see. Relationships where one person's transformation exposes the dysfunction that was being called normal. The ripple effect is not always gentle. Sometimes it is an earthquake that shakes foundations people thought were solid. Sometimes it forces uncomfortable truths into the light. Sometimes it breaks apart systems that needed to be broken. But it is always ultimately healing, even when it hurts, even when it's messy, even when it demands that people choose between comfort and truth. You become the catalyst for liberation you never intended to be. Your personal healing becomes a collective healing. Your individual courage inspires communal courage. Your solo journey becomes a map that others follow toward their own freedom. And those who once controlled, who once manipulated, who once fed off the energy of others, they find themselves increasingly isolated. Because when people begin to awaken mass, when boundaries become contagious, when self-respect spreads like a revolution, their old tactics stop working on everyone, not just you. They created this ripple effect through their own actions. Their treatment of you was so egregious, so clearly wrong, that your liberation becomes undeniably righteous. Others cannot argue with the evidence of your peace, your growth, your obvious relief at being free. They cannot dispute the contrast between who you were when you were trapped and who you've become since breaking free. The most beautiful part of the ripple effect is how it validates your own journey. You begin to see that your struggle was not in vain, that your pain had purpose, that your breakthrough serves others beyond yourself. Every person who finds their own strength through witnessing yours adds meaning to everything you endured. You realize you were not just saving yourself, you were becoming a lighthouse for others lost in the same storm. Your light doesn't just guide your own way home. It illuminates the path for countless others who are ready to follow. This is the true completion of the game. Not just your individual victory, but the systematic dismantling of the structures that kept you and so many others imprisoned. Your freedom becomes a key that unlocks doors you didn't even know existed. Your healing becomes medicine for wounds you never knew you were qualified to treat. The ripple effect proves that liberation is not selfish. It is the most generous thing you can do. Because every chain you break, every cage you escape, every limit you transcend makes it easier for the next person to do the same. Your awakening was never just about you. It was about everyone who comes after. Everyone who needed to see that it was possible. Everyone who was waiting for permission to choose themselves. You gave them that permission, and the world will never be the same. If this word resonated with you, hit like, subscribe, and drop 77 in the comments to mark the moment you chose yourself. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Because the chosen ones don't just survive, we rise.